Alright, so we're going to go over the quiz that we did in class today. We're going to go over each question and pick out the clues in the question that help us answer each question. Alright, so let's jump right in it. A technician is talking to end users about the specifications for an upgraded application server. The users of the application report that there cannot be any unscheduled downtime or data loss. Additionally, they would like for the performance of the application to improve over the previous server in any way possible. The previous server was running RAID 5. Alright, so I'll pause here for a second. Go ahead and put the video on pause if you'd like to try to answer this. And we'll go over it in just a second. Alright, so the clues we see in here are no unscheduled downtime or data loss, which is gonna, which means we need redundancy. We need fault tolerance. So RAID 0 gives us no fault tolerance. RAID 1, 6, and 10 all give fault tolerance. But the biggest clue that they said in here is they want improved performance over the previous RAID, which was a RAID 5. The only RAID here that gives improved performance over RAID 5 is a RAID 1.0. Alright, so let's go on to the next one. A technician is configuring a new web server and must have 10 terabytes of fault-tolerant storage while minimizing the number of failure points. The applications on the server also require the highest performance available. Alright, go ahead and put it on pause and answer it if you like. And then we'll take a look at this. Alright, so this question we actually went over in the PowerPoint. So if you watch your PowerPoint, you already know the answer to this one. But there's a couple clues in here we have to look at. 10 terabytes of drive space, fault tolerant, and highest performance available. So let's go through these one by one. RAID 0 with 2 5-terabyte drives. I mean, right away, RAID 0 doesn't give us fault tolerance. It's for speed, there's no redundancy. So that's out. RAID 1 with 2 5-terabyte drives. Well, RAID 1 does give us redundancy. Gives us that fault tolerance we're looking for. But as you know, when you set up a RAID 1, we lose 50% of our drive space. So we've got 2 5-terabyte drives, 10 terabytes, but we're going to lose 50% of that, so we're only going to end up with 5 terabytes of space, and that doesn't meet the requirement of 10 terabytes. So RAID 5 with 3 5-terabyte drives. So RAID 5 does provide redundancy. 3 5-terabyte drives will give us 15 terabytes, and we lose 30%. So that's going to drop us down to about 11 terabytes of drive space. So it meets the 10 terabytes. It also meets the fault tolerance. So RAID 5 is one option. Let's look at RAID 1.0 with 4 5-terabyte drives. So RAID 1 definitely, RAID 1.0 also definitely gives us fault tolerance. And 4 or 5 terabytes of drive gives us 20 terabytes, and we lose 50% of that with a RAID 1.0. So it gives us 10 terabytes of space. So that meets the requirement of the 10 terabytes and the fault tolerance. But that third requirement tells us which one it's going to be between RAID 5 and RAID 1.0. They want the highest performance available. Well, the highest performance available between those two is RAID 1.0. If this question had said something to the effect of highest performance available while saving cost or on a budget, then we would be leaning towards a RAID 5. Because RAID 1.0 is much more expensive to set up than a RAID 5. Alright, so Joe, a user, wants his desktop RAID configured to allow the fastest speed and the most storage capacity. His desktop has 3 hard drives. Alright, so fastest speed, most storage capacity. So as we know, with RAID 1, RAID 5, go ahead and put it on pause. We haven't said anything yet. So you can answer it yourself if you want, if you haven't already. All right. So as we know, these three bottom ones all lose some drive space. RAID 1, you lose 50% of what you install. RAID 5, you lose 30%. And RAID 1.0, you lose 50%. The benefit to all those is redundancy. But we don't see anywhere up here where Joe says that he's looking for redundancy. He's looking for fastest speed and most storage. And a RAID 0, even though the minimum is 2 drives, we can set up a RAID 0 with 3 drives. That's just the minimum. We could set it up with 6 drives. So the only one that meets his criteria for the fastest speed and the most storage is RAID 0. All right. A technician needs to configure a high-end workstation with 4 hard drives for redundancy. The customer wants the end result to have the highest capacity possible, but still have the ability to survive a drive failure. All right, so pause it and take a look and see what you think. All right, so they want redundancy. So that cuts out RAID 0. No redundancy. The highest capacity possible, but still be able to survive a drive failure. Well, that's a moot point, because anything with redundancy is going to survive a drive failure. One drive failure. So the fact that we have redundancy on all 3 of these are going to meet the one drive failing. So what we need to look at is this here: highest capacity available, possible. So out of the 3 that are redundant, which one gives us the highest possible capacity? Well, we know RAID 1 loses 50%. RAID 1.0 also loses 50%. RAID 5 only loses 30%. So RAID 5 would be the answer to this question, being that it's redundant and the highest capacity we could have. All right, let's go on to the next one. A technician is commissioning a workstation that is required to have mirrored storage utilizing 2 4 terabyte drives that can support one failure. All right, so they want mirrored storage. Go ahead and put it on pause and we'll go over it. All right, so one of the big keywords here is they want mirrored storage. That automatically cuts our answers in half. There's only 2 that give us mirrored storage. RAID 0 is striped. RAID 1 is a mirrored storage. RAID 5 is striped with parity. And RAID 1.0 is mirrored. So right away, we're only down to RAID 1 or RAID 1.0. Both are mirrored. So what would tell us the difference? Well, the fact that we're only utilizing 2 4 terabyte drives. RAID 1 can be set up with 2 drives. RAID 1.0 requires a minimum of 4 drives. So the fact that we're only using 2 drives, our only option is a RAID 1. All right, next question, last question. A technician is configuring a new CAD workstation that has 4 large drives. The workstation will be used to edit large critical files, so the storage configuration should be both fast and redundant. Okay, so redundant takes out RAID 0. Now here we really get into the specifics of each RAID. The fact that they're setting up a CAD workstation, they will be using 4 large drives. So all of these we could set up 4 large drives. We could do mirrored drives with 4 because it's an even number of drives. We can definitely do a RAID 5 with 4 drives and a RAID 1.0 with 4 drives. As a matter of fact, that's the minimum for that. So what we're really looking at is what it's being used for. It's a CAD workstation. which is graphic design or architecture. They are going to be editing large files, critical files. So they will be doing a lot of reads and writes. And if you watch the PowerPoint, we went over the strengths of each of these RAIDs. Some are good for read, some are good for write, but only one of them is really good for reading and writing. The storage configuration should be both fast and redundant. Well, we know they're redundant, but there's only one of those that's fast for reading and writing of large files that you're going to edit, and critical files. Obviously, that's for redundancy. So when it comes down to it, the only one that's really good for reading and writing is RAID 10. Of course, that's more expensive to set up, and you lose 50% of your drive space. But if the files are that critical, and you're going to be doing that much reading and writing for a CAD workstation, that's where we are. We're at a RAID 10. You just have to put the money in to set that up. So I hope that helped. If you answered these in class, I hope it helped see where you went wrong. And if you're answering at home, I hope you did well.